Howdy, and this is Casey, and welcome to episode 8 of my Let's Play series. Now, I'm going to be doing this a little bit odd because the first audio while I was playing the game didn't save. So, in this episode, I'm going to be getting into Thaumcraft, and one of the very first things you need in Thaumcraft is the Wand of the Apprentice. To make it, you need a gold nugget, a stick, and some sort of magical Thaumcraft shard. Put them in line like so, and you can pull out the Wand of the Apprentice. Now the Wand of the Apprentice will will draw 50 vids from the atmosphere from the surroundings, and you can use that to power whatever magic you end up doing. Now that I've got that, and since I'm diving into magic, I'll also be making a Minimus stone from equivalent exchange. Now the Minimus stone will convert very generic vanilla items one to the other with roughly the same value, such as turning gold into several iron, or dirt into rocks, and rocks into dirt, and so forth. Now to make that, you make a inert stone, then you surround it with 8 shards of minimum that you get from killing monsters. And finally, for Thaumcraft, they make there is a very handy book that is uh, that basically acts as your guide to Thaumcraft. So to make that, you need to make a bookshelf. So you get you make 3 books, then make a bookshelf, and then place it in the world. And once you do that, you can click the bookshelf in the world with your wand, and that'll convert it into a Thaumonomicon, which basically will track your discoveries, and it acts as your repository of all of your discoveries and how to make the recipes that you've learned or that you are expected to know. So you place the bookshelf out in the world, tap, and then voila, magic. And you can open it up, and it'll show you the basics of Thaumcraft magic. Now, going into just the basics, you can make tables that act as building blocks for your other Thaumcraft machines, such as your arcane work table, which is the Thaumcraft equivalent of a workbench, but can be used as both a normal workbench and to make Thaumcraft stuff, and a research table, which can be used to learn the recipes to new items. You can't actually make these items until you've learned the recipes through a research table. So I've got my 2 tables and my scribing tools, so I can place the tables in the world. You may remember I had cattle up here last episode. They were glitching through the walls, so they glitched down to the basement, so I just put them there. But anyway, put the tables down and then put the scribing tools on top, and that transforms those tables into a research bench. Now, I'm not going to be showing too much of my research here because that's a lot of spoilers for people that want to get into that themselves, and it's a lot of tedium for people that have already done it themselves or just don't care. So I will probably touch base a little bit to show you where I've gotten in progress with that, but for the most part, I'm just going to be assuming that I'm doing it off camera. So did a bit of research, but really I'm running out of the resources that I don't get from my dredge. So now seems like a good time to dip a little bit into Steve's Crafts, um, a tree farm, for example. So Steve's carts are modular carts that you can put together that'll run on Minecraft tracks and perform different tasks depending on which modules you put into them. So for the most part, it's just simply down into building the modules, building the hull of the cart, and then combining them together in the cart assembler, I believe it's called. And the cart assembler uses its own fuel source. It doesn't connect to Buildcraft power or IC2 power. You actually have to supply it with coal. And yes, here's the cart assembler. But once you've put it down, you can use it um, to basically plan out your cart, and it'll basically keep track of the module costs and whether or not different modules are allowable on different other hulls. And yeah, I'm adjusting my GUI size because Steve's carts are quite large in their GUIs. So adjusting it to a little bit smaller than the absolute largest. Once you get in here, you can put a hull in the top left, and it'll open up what slots are available on it. For example, you can make a wooden hull, which can only put the most simple, a iron hull, which is the standard, and then the more advanced reinforced hull. The hull is basically the minecart shape from Minecraft with wheels underneath, and wheels are basically almost the reverse of gears in Buildcraft. But once you've built the hull, you can then just see what sort of size you have for components. For example, the iron hull, I believe, can have 6 modules on there, and none of the modules can have a complexity cost more than 50 individually, and there is a total of, I believe, 200. So you cannot have more than 200. Yes, total module costs, with no component having more than 50. So for the tree farm, I'm going to have a a solar engine to basically do most of the work, and to put a coal engine to basically be backup for when the canopy blocks the sunlight. And I'm going to need a tree cutter to basically cut down the leaves and the wood, and some sort of storage to put the wood in. So probably go with side chest, and I'll probably put the fertilizer, simply because I won't be putting too much fertilizer in there, but if I'm already making it, it's not a whole lot more extra cost to put the fertilizer in. But I'm going to go ahead and get working on that and get back with you once I've gotten more progress done. Okay, I'm going to go through here and show you real fast what the ingredients for each of the modules are. For the woodcutter, for example, it actually requires 5 diamonds, because each of the saw blades require a diamond in the construction of it. Then you need to take a advanced prototype circuit board, surround it with saplings. And Steve's cart is somewhat handy in the fact that all of its raw materials are vanilla materials. It doesn't actually add Steve's cardium into the ground as an ore that you have to go mine. So if you've been collecting normal materials, you have at least the basic materials you need to get started. It adds a lot of intermediate steps from raw materials into your end result. So that's another way of doing it. So but yes, this is the engine, and here's the fertilizer. But yeah, now I will craft those off camera and get back with you. Well, I've completed the modules, so I'm gonna put them all on the cart. I've got my two engines, the solar and the gonna be wood burning in my case, and I've got my woodcutter, fertilizer, and storage, the side carts, and they go into the appropriate slots. So once I've got that in there, I'll need to put some sort of fuel, such as uh, charcoal or wood or coal, in here to power the cart assembler. And somewhat unhandily, there's no automated way of adding more coal. So the intent is that you have to keep watching this, and it's going to take 15 minutes of powered use for this to assemble. So I have to keep somewhat an eye on here and add more fuel to it as the fuel burns down. But 15 minutes later, I will have a cart that can plant saplings and cut down trees. So there is that, yes. And since I'm doing a lot of running back and forth between my the site of where I want to put all this cart ran tree farm and my workshops, which is on my boat, I decided might as well move my boat a little bit back into where it started off. And I believe this is the first time I've actually moved it a great distance by itself. So I set the computer that's controlling the drives on a loop. So it's moving backwards at roughly 1 block every 6 seconds. But a little bit glitchy, but it's moving on its own. But yeah, I'm gonna move it a little bit closer so I can work up there and build the tree farm up there. I will also build a coke oven up there, since I need the creosote, or however you pronounce that oil, to make rails now that Railcraft has changed the vanilla rail recipe. I mean, they give you more rails per resource, you just need another step in there. So, a little bit more of an initial buy-in. But for the most part, I'm just, I like watching my boat move. I mean, jump through a lot of hoops to make sure that my workshop is able to be moved. What with getting rid of thermal expansion and not using not using certain multiple block structures, which wouldn't be frame safe, or I guess would be less frame safe than other blocks. But I don't know. It's handy being able to move your workshop back and forth. And there's the cows glitching through the walls, Matrix style. Now, the handy thing about having a minimum stone is that you can actually convert 4 gravel into 1 lump of clay. So since I have a decent amount of gravel already from my dredge, I can put it into a crafting table with the minimus stone and turn 4 of them into lumps of clay. Now this will cost you a little bit of your durability on your stone, but not a huge amount, and honestly it's pretty much worth it because clay is really hard to find. I've actually had a decent amount beforehand. I had about 80, but I need over 100 clay bricks in making a coke oven. So the minima stone is a good way of covering that shortfall. But I'm going to take the clay, brick it into, or brick it, uh, fire it into bricks, and then uh, put it in a pattern with sand so that I can make the uh, however many um, coke oven bricks for the multi-brick structure that is the coke oven. And once I've got that done, I will... Oh, hey, villager zombie. But once I get that done, I will get back with you. Okay, and the coke engine is done, and when the last block is placed, the oven window appears. So now I need wood to put in the coke oven to get the oil to treat the ties so that I can lay down the tracks for my wood farm so that I no longer need to get more wood. Okay, so flash forward, I've gotten the oil to make the tracks, the cart finished out of the assembler, and I built a... Well, here's all of the modules on the cart as it's working. It's planting down the saplings itself, and then as they grow, it'll cut them down from the top down, removing the leaves and creating more saplings, apples, and then cutting down the wood. I gave it a little bit of charcoal to get it started, and it'll burn the charcoal or some sort of flammable material whenever it doesn't have line of sight to the sun and its internal battery has emptied. So at night, or if all of the trees grow in just the perfectly annoying way that they all block the line of sight, it won't just get stuck, and it'll have the internal fuel to get it unstuck. But now that I've gotten wood from that, I can get back to the research that I was doing in the first place. I didn't quite get to the discoveries that I wanted, but I've gotten a decent amount of progress so far. Now, one of the things that I did actually discover was the way to turn one metal into another, specifically into copper, because copper has been my big stumbling block on finishing the rest of this boat, because the dredge goes straight down rather than sticking to the levels that copper is prevalent on. So I've been getting a good amount of most other metals, gold, um, tin, iron, but not a lot of copper. I think I've only found like one or two copper ores since I've really started. So this way I can, or at least since I've started the dredge, via the dredge. I've gone down and did more spot mining and gotten more that way. And one last thing for the Steve's cart, but I reorganized it so that all of the wood was toward the end of the cargo manager, so that whenever it gets more wood, it'll put it into a stack that already has at least one, so that the saplings are put first, because whenever it grabs fuel out, it'll grab from the top left corner first. So in theory, it'll burn through the saplings first before it goes to the wood or the charcoal. And I'll probably even take out the charcoal because it looks like burning saplings lasts long enough for as much saplings as it gets, because it only needs one sapling per tree to replant, so anything else is just surplus that it can be burnt to power it whenever it doesn't have sunlight. But I'm going to try that for now. I will probably work on some way of automatically getting the wood out of the cargo manager. But for now, I can just stop by and grab a stack or two of wood. And it seems like I haven't even put any bone meal in here, and it's been getting a really good amount of wood in the time that I've had it running. So don't expect wood to be a problem for me anymore. But I think it's been a fairly productive episode. Got the beginning of Thaumcraft, and got a tree farm put in. Well, thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.